What is happening, Mark Bare Naked Willie? How are you today, my friend?
Well, Dave, coming off a wonderful Canada Day, I'm gearing up to celebrate the 4th on the 3rd with the 5th, brother.
I love it. Like this kind of 4th of July. We're
I
going to have
knew
a good
you were going to
weekend.
do it, Dave. I knew it. I love
You
it.
knew it? I love the holidays, man. We have so much fun. I can't wait for Christmas again as well, so we can read our favorite Dr. Seuss books and have a little bit of fun. But 4th of July, man, listen, Independence Day here, for the United States of America, or should I say the United Great States of America, because we are traveling them all coast to coast. And guess what, Mark?
I have no idea what to guess. You're full of surprises, Dave.
There are amazing people doing amazing things in every state across this country. Regardless of what the news says, regardless of politics out there, we have met amazing people in every state. And right now, we just landed in Washington State, and we're going to watch the 4th of July over the Puget Sound. How's that?
I love it. I hit the Puget Sound in 1984, Dave. I put a message under a rock right off the main dock. So look for that rock, and you'll find the wonderful message I left you.
You left me a message. Oh, perfect. Well, listen, Mark, today is the first time in BS Friday and Dave Cooper Live history. You know what that is?
I think it's the first time in your 500 plus shows that a guest has returned this many times.
Three times. So there must be something happening that's super cool, or he must be super smart, or he must have a huge following, or he just figured it out. And so many people always tune in to watch what Doug Farr has to say. How cool is that?
It's pretty neat. So we tend to break it up based on quarterly jumps. We're now in the third quarter. We only have 6 months left of this calendar year, and it's right. It's a great reflection. He ended off our year. He started our year with us, and we're here again for Act 3. And I think we can all attest to different acts in our careers, right? And the fact that we're always writing more chapters, right? The screenplay lives on. So I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with your costume, and I'm thrilled for people that are joining us today. Much respect.
Yeah, this is going to be a great day. All right, everybody, if you are just joining us, please hit that like and share button right now. There are a lot of people out there that are not going to want to miss this, so we could use your help to share this information out there right now. Let's bring them into our world of BS Friday with Mark Bare Naked Willie and myself. So please do that. Always subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you are not following Mark Bare Naked Willie, you're wrong. Follow him. You need to follow him. And on top of that, Mark, we have a special surprise guest today for an introduction, don't we?
We do. We do. Are we at that stage? Are we going there?
Well, you got something else to do?
I would like to admire your hat. I would like to thank Greg Ugaldi for turning us on to Twitch. And ushering in the next generation to do our BIM and our digital twin. So, Dave, let's bring forward Emily, and let's get to know her and create the path for her introductions.
I love it. All right, let me take my screens off so everybody. I don't want to distract from what Emily has to say with my costume today. Hi, Emily. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I love it.
I had about 2 seconds to pull my thoughts together because this is a surprise. But I'm happy to talk about Doug Farr. You want me to introduce him?
Well, I think first, Emily, tell us a little bit about who you are so everybody knows why you're introducing Doug Farr, but you don't have to go too in depth. Or if you just want to hop into Doug Farr, there is no pressure here whatsoever. There's just millions of people watching you, but don't worry about it.
Okay, well, I mean, Doug and I share an interest in the CNU, Congress for the New Urbanism, and we've been working together probably like, I think 20 years or so on this big project of trying to reduce suburban sprawl and make communities more walkable. And we've been together on this journey. And he was, as you know, well, maybe you don't know, chair of the board of the Congress for the New Urbanism for many years, and did some, amazing things. What I want you to know about Doug Farr is that he is the most extroverted person I have ever encountered in my life. Like, he really likes to be with other people. And I think COVID was super hard on him because he just was, he was hurting, man. He was hurting. Unlike myself, I'm introverted, and, it was okay for me to not be around people. Anyway, so Doug is this amazing architect. I even hired his firm to design my home, which is under construction right now. And of course, he was making me be all net zero about everything. And we're doing a Tesla roof on our house, second Tesla roof in all of the state of Michigan. And by the way, Doug is from Michigan. He grew up in Detroit area. He has an architecture degree from Columbia. And I think he's best known, and I know him best through his writing. He has this amazing book, Sustainable Nation. Hello? Am I going on too long?
Email right now.
Oh, no. You keep going. Sorry, Mark didn't have himself muted.
Oh, okay.
Keep going.
So anyway, his amazing book, Sustainable Urbanism, Urban Design with Nature, was the first one. And now his most recent one is Sustainable Nation. And I teach at the University of Chicago. I teach urban planning, urbanism, urban design. And I make my students read his books because they are so densely packed with important information. And he's such a curious guy. He's just kind of like off in a million different directions, but in these books, he's kind of pulled it all together. And so just a lot of wisdom there, and fun guy to hang out with too. So that's my introduction. Doug, why don't you start your entertainment?
I'll get on.
Doug Farr in the house. What's happening, Mr. Doug? How are you today?
Well, very well, Dave. Thank you very much. I was completely surprised by what Emily had to say. She's a dear friend, and we are probably social opposites, I'm learning. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, COVID was a little hard, but we're all dealing with it. So all good there. Yeah. So great to be here. I think we're still working through our kind of technical stuff here. I don't know if you got any of the links or.
I did. I ended up getting the one link. I sent you a message, unable to open it and share it. Can you send that and just print it to PDF and put it on and email it that way, and we'll hop into it?
All right. Well, that'll take a minutes, but yes, we can do that. Or you know what? Maybe this is a moment where we just say there's no PowerPoint and we just talk. We could also do that. What's your pleasure, man? Hey,
why don't we start talking, hop into it. And then while we're doing that and what we're going to talk about, Mark, why don't you give a quick overview on what we're going to go through today with Doug, and I'll see if I can get his PowerPoint in the background to work. Sound good? You're muted, buddy.
That's great. Thank you for being here, Doug, and thanks for working through the technical, Dave. I want to say first, Emily, it's always nice when we get an introduction from someone's colleague, from someone's friend, right? It gives us that true perspective, and it literally rolled off your tongue. I got a chance to hear your thoughts on Doug being an extrovert and his desire and passion to be around people. And I know him as the same. And then I love the part where you speak about your project, taking shape, and how you phrased the, oh, of course we're working on the net zero as well, and the solar from the Tesla, because these are things that are also common, right? When you connect with professionals, they end up adding more things to your desk to think about for the projects. So I really like that part, and I also enjoyed just the background of framing for everyone that Doug is our friend from Detroit, and the background there. So it's brilliant, and I appreciate you coming on to do that very much, very much so. So welcome to the show as well, Emily, and I'm thrilled that we get to hear that you have this Tesla solar roof, because there's only going to be a couple of people that get to do it first, and I think people love to share and let's say brag about that, because it's worth bragging. It's an endeavor to find a new product and to be able to go through the challenges of using it. I know a few people in other states that are firsts, just like yourself. Um, and I'm reading the chat on the other side. Dave and Doug are working vigilantly to pull the technology together.
We're about 1 minute out, Doug, from your presentation being ready.
Well, let's get started, people.
Yeah.
Mark could vamp until Tuesday, so we don't want. The man can fill. The man can go all night. So so let's get started. So anyway, thanks guys. Thanks, Em. I love you so much. Cannot wait to see the solar roof with cocktails on Lake Michigan. So that'll be in a few weeks here.
Absolutely.
So very exciting. So anyway, and thanks Dave and Mark for hosting a third time. Yes, I'm the party guest, the extroverted party guest that will just not leave. You know, the lights are off, the bar's been mopped, the whole thing, and we're still talking to this guy. Oh my God.
And the beds aren't even that comfortable. They're not even comfortable beds, and he keeps coming back. I'm going to give you a 3-foot bed so it's uncomfortable.
There you go. Yeah, short
I'm
sheet,
just teasing.
The whole thing. So the third, let's just start the conversation. So, Detroit boy, architect, planner, first talk was about our sustainable buildings, which you've done a lot of around Chicago and around the country. Really proud of that. And then I had a parallel second career as an urban designer and planner, which is how I know Emily, through the Congress for New Urbanism. And that's really sort of joyful part of my world, and part of my job is, making places equitable, sustainable places, and then writing books about it. But the thing I wanted to talk about, the third chapter, the third act, and I'm far from done, I'm just kind of figuring out what I'm doing here, is this whole Hopi changey thing, which is, I consider myself a designer and kind of a community organizer both. And so it's this, the challenges that affect us right now today on this revolutionary weekend of the 4th of July. 225 years ago, we overthrew the king and got our freedoms, and we have this great democracy, and what are we going to do with it? And so anyway, I want to talk about just ideas and theories and practice about applying design thinking, design skills, community organizing to speeding up the pace of change. Because I think what we all agree is, life is joyous. We love our friends. We love the things we are good at and thrive on. But we also see a world around us that could be a lot better. And I think we're impatient. There we go. There it is. Hey, it happened. Wow, there's technology. Thank you. So who's is this Dave? Is this, are you my?
Yep. You'll just have to tell me when you'd like me to move forward.
Yeah. Well, let's 1 second. So I really am a big believer that we should see ourselves as primitive beings, that we think we're all advanced and so on. We're not, so that's what I'm going to talk about today. But what do you do? So the fact that we're not Spock, how do you make progress? So Dave, if you want to share your screen back, let's do that again. I don't know quite where it went, but it's out there somewhere. So so we're good. Why don't you advance, and I'll come up with some kind of quick, hand gesture. So talk 3. Let's keep going. Next one. So, as Emily said, Emily is the most prolific author in the new urbanism. She writes books at the pace that other people, bake cakes. I mean, there's basically one in the oven at any given time. I suspect there's 2 or 3 on her desk right now or in her computer. So I've gotten 2 out, and they were just laborious. It took me 10 years twice. But the second one, Sustainable Nation, really was about this question of time and change and urgency. Next slide. Thank you, Dave. Next one. So we are not Spock. We are not Spock. And there's so much of policy and so much of change theory that says, well, if we provide proper incentives and raise the cost of this slightly, people will respond. Not hardly. That's not how we're wired. That's not how things work. And we would serve ourselves well to sort of get rid of that whole notion. Next one. So what I do think is true is that we are evolved as social beings. And so when you go back in time and you look at kind of, humans 10,000 years ago, humans 50,000 years ago, humans 100,000 years ago, we probably looked like this. We were some sort of family group that was, co-inhabited. We lived in the same place. Whoops, go back a little bit. Lived in the same place, and we had social traditions and oral traditions where the elders would tell stories, maybe around the campfire. It helped that they rhymed because you could remember the epic poems. That was your geology, your kind of cosmology, all those kinds of things. So we are tribal or clan based. We have small social family groups. We have hierarchies within them. We want to be accepted by them, and we respond well to stories. That's who we are. Next. And then with that, there's this kind of modern science of, behavioral economics, an area called heuristics, kind of the quirks of how our minds are wired, called heuristics. One is loss aversion, which is we're wired. If you take something away from me, I'm twice as emotionally kind of damaged or impacted as if I had gained the same thing, back. So like we really do cling to things. We don't want to lose them. We're wired to keep what we have and to not change. Next one, Dave. Thank you. Is escalation of commitment. This is the Vietnam War. This is the bad poker hand that you had. All of those things. It's sort of we stay the course. Once we've started, say like, well, I can't change now. I've got so much in it. So like the Vietnam War, the classic thing, in fact, the Afghan War that just President Biden has started ending, we're 5 and 10 and 15 years into these wars. So like, we can't quit now. Think of how many people have died. So we double down and we stick with it. So again, we are wired again to not change. Next one. Thank you. This is the other one, which is we rely on a small sample of people. So if the people around us in our lives say something is true or something's a good idea or I believe this, we assign them a disproportionate sense that they represent the bigger society. The people around us are more powerful in our worldviews than would be statistically justifiable. So, back to this, tribe around a campfire, we're listening to our friends and our elders, we're agreeing in a groupthink setting. That's human beings. And so, there's a next one, if you would, Dave. There's this notion that your identity comes first, and then your opinions flow from your identity. So, for those of us who are working in climate change and all those kinds of things, and you're trying to change actions, and underlying that is changing opinions, you get down to the bottom of it, and you say you can't do either of those until you change identity. So, how the hell do you do that? And then just if you need convincing that humans are not Spock, this is one of my favorite ones, which is if you take the math problem at the top of the page, the 8 times 7, verse, and ask people quickly, like, what's that answer versus the one below it, 1 times 2 times 3, you get 2 very different answers. And the average answer that people give for the one on the top, 2,300, the one on the bottom, 500, it's the same, should be the same answer. And we're so trickable that the size of the first number you see determines whether you guess a bigger number or a smaller number. So are we Spock? Are we rational? Not remotely. And we suck at math because the actual number is 43,000 and something. So we're terrible. Humans are terrible. So policies, we'll put a little price on it. We'll provide an incentive. we're terrible at all that. So next, we have to appeal to things through stories and emotions. Next one. So, but we are civilized. And so this is the kind of interesting kind of counterforce that I think is, at least it interests me. And if you click one time, the tag there should disappear. We came up with a graphic that summarized the history of civilization on one page, and here it is. And I'll just tell you how this works. Next one. There's a number of scholars who agree that sort of civilization, the sort of test of what is civilization, has 4 or 5 parts of it. So written language, spoken language, currency, rule of law, infrastructure, and governance. I think 6. And so Sumeria and Persia back in 3100 Common Era, before the Common Era, more or less was kind of some rough consensus that there were at least 2 civilizations, 2 societies that met the criteria for civilization back then. So in our little kind of worldview, we called that generation 0, and we count forward in 25-year generations from there, and that's that whole serpentine graphic you saw. But let's about 5 seconds on each of the next 4 slides, Dave. So generation 0, 3100, the pyramids and the kind of library in Alexandria and the whole thing, generation 21. So, not that far into the future, ancient kind of the democracy of Athens, generation 104. So 100 generations forward from civilization, quite a ways, and almost halfway between, then and the present. Next one is Rome, which is, basically 30 generations after Greece. So, kind of as we are to, let's say, Columbus, is kind of Greece to Rome, roughly. We're a little closer than they were, but that in terms of think of generations and how you pass on information and learning and culture. So, and then fast forward to the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution, generation 198. As a species, we've been civilized for about 200 generations. When we started, industrializing, and many benefits came from it. Lifespan improved, quality of life improved, disease went down, longevity went up. But also we took on, fossil fuels right at the same time. And so that's the kind of setup for what I want to talk about next, which is our carbon problem. So if you click one time, I think, Dave, that sign may go away. So between generations 198 and 212, which is the year 2200, we've got a few generations here, and it's unique in our history, in our species history, to say we have a deadline. We have a collective deadline. There's no authority giving us this deadline. It's our negotiated authority through governments, through trust in one another, through our friendship networks, and so on, and through Emily's net zero house, which will be the Tesla second solar roof in Michigan. Thank you, Emily. You're part of civilization. I don't know if you've thought of that yourself that way, you and Luke. But anyway, we have to reverse course. And humans, there's very little track record or history on how you do this. So I find this the most intriguing design and organizing problem that I can imagine. So I'm completely smitten with it. So next slide, if you would, Dave, please. So, and I think folks have seen this image from me before. This is United States CO2 consumption. Thank you, Mark. Thumbs up on the 2030 commitment. But you can see that sort of dashed green line there. Dave, if you can move your cursor just to sort of trace the downslope of the rate at which we ideally would stop burning fossil fuels is a fairly radical, abrupt adjustment. So next slide, we did a bunch of research and sort of figured out the most comparable case study we could find is cigarette smoking cessation in the United States. It's the single most effective, best funded public health campaign ever. And it's got this kind of bell curve. And it's also a great data set because it's so well documented. So next slide, if we decarbonize at the rate we quit smoking, what does that look like? Next slide. Thank you. Whoops. Oh yeah, that's right. And this is perpetuated. The analogy between cigarettes and fossil fuels is almost perfect. So we have these companies, whether it was Philip Morris in the day or ExxonMobil today, that are in our capitalist society. We allow them to sell bad stuff because it's profitable, and we struggle to rein them in and to deny them profits. And so they are a powerful political force. They're a powerful lobbying force. It was true for cigarettes. It's true now for for carbon. Next slide. Thank you. Yeah, thumbs down, Mark. Thank you. The smoking cessation campaign has lessons for us, that the things that really mattered were these sort of structural interventions, health warnings, taxes, legal bans, and then there's a whole social side of it, of the shunning and the shame of being thought of as a smoker, being unpopular, all those kinds of things. So the lessons from the smoking cessation campaign are being applied, or I'm trying to apply them to carbon and decarbonization. Next. Next. And then, this messaging stuff, this is interesting. The one on the left is, the smoking cessation campaign started to plateau, like they'd scared everybody, they'd published all the health data, and, people weren't quitting smoking anymore. And the most successful second tier campaign was parents, you're giving your kids, you're smoking in front of your kids and putting them at risk of cancer. So the idea that you're inflicting harm on those folks around you. And then to the kids, that was to the adults. So the kids is adults have lied to you. They told it was okay. So like, how do those messages get translated? Because they were among the most effective, messaging campaigns in smoking cessation. Are they relevant? How do they translate into carbon? All those things fascinate me as campaign matters. Next. So the comparison. So if we decarbonize at the rate we quit smoking, click the button. Sadly, the finding is we would decarbonize one more click around the year 2150, which is about 100 years too slow, maybe 120 years too slow. So, but that's the pace we're on. I actually think, and I debate every time I give this talk or show this slide, is this our best hope? Is this our worst case? Is this our likely kind of business as usual thing? Where are we? But anyway, at least seeing this scares the bejesus out of me. And so I'm really dedicated, and I believe that we can speed up change and get to where we want to a lot sooner through being methodical about it and having a plan. Next. Thank you, Dave. You're doing a great job, by the way. What are you doing next Thursday? I got another thing I want to do. So, so the blue sky there was just to give us a moment to reflect and say, it doesn't have to be this way. The idea that, it'll take us 120 years to decarbonize is a possibility. I think we just lost Emily. Her husband is Belgian. And so the soccer game is happening, shortly here. So she's got to get a beer going and things like that. So thanks, Emily, for doing that. So, but anyway, so, it was in response to this chart to say, like, are we really going to take that long? That got me all going. And so this is what Act 3 is about. Next slide, Dave, if you would. So is this idea of, we thought of a not-for-profit, which was just established, called the Pattern Project, and it has two parts. And if you click once, the first one is called National Neighborhood Days, and the second one is called Carbon-Free Chicago, or Carbon-Free Cities. And I'm going to talk about both of those real quick. So next slide, if you would, Dave. So National Neighborhood Days, having written Sustainable Nation, what I realized is true is that we have trust issues in the world and in this country. And we operate with a default setting of fear. And it's very hard to make change when people are afraid. People double down, they dig in, they retrench, and understandably, if you're afraid of what's going to change, or all the heuristics of don't make me change course, don't make me lose things, blah, 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 blah. So if you click once, there's a the website link, but let's get on to the next, nationalneighborhooddays.com if you want to sign up. But here was the data we came across that freaked me out, that caused me to want to start up National Neighborhood Days. This is data from, I think, 2015. These are our country's greatest threats, the greatest fears. And you can see, government corruption, legal immigration, whites no longer a majority, dying, and then the thing we are most afraid of, 58%, talking to strangers. Oh my Lord, talking to strangers, we're scared of that. Like, how the heck do you expect to make progress if talking to strangers freaks you out? So hold that thought. Next one is, so you say, we don't trust the people around us if we don't already know them. And then this is a sort of chilling chart, and I think it's probably even gotten worse. through Watergate, through Pentagon Papers, through all the kind of scandals of federal government, and there's plenty of local scandals in government too. We don't trust government to do things. So we don't trust government. We don't want to talk to people we don't know. Like, how is that a formula for change? And what kind of platform does that offer? So National Neighborhood Days is a national campaign to kind of tackle all that. But this next slide is really when I sat down to do National Neighborhood Days, and I watched how, thank you, whoever put that little post there, that was so sweet. But when I sat down to do National Neighborhood Days, thank you. Oh my God, Mark, you are too much. Don't do the tattoo. I know you keep texting me, where should I put the tattoo? Don't put the tattoo anywhere. Just don't even think about it. Certainly not the face. Nothing. Yeah, temporary maybe, but anyway. So we'd started up National Neighborhood Days and watched as in the city of Chicago as 8 years of Mayor Emanuel doing nothing on climate, and a year into the Lightfoot administration, nothing going on. And so stood up Carbon Free Chicago in January of last year at the Field Museum, and Mark was there and a bunch of our friends, and then a kickoff meeting in February and so on. So this is what I want to talk about. This is kind of the crux of today's talk, pattern language stuff. Next. So Carbon Free Chicago is a campaign. It is now legally a not-for-profit, but that's less important. And it is frankly a network. It is not yet an organization. We don't really have funding. We kind of have a website, but no one's ever looked at it. But it does have a theory of change, which is to say it's a plan, and it's a living plan. And I submit to you, when you survey the landscape, a lot of groups who are working in this space don't have a theory of change, or they don't have a coherent theory of change, or a theory of change that touches any other organization. They're autonomous, they're an island. So we're trying to sort of take the broad view and coordinate groups. Next slide, Dave. You're doing a great job, by the way. I just, I hope.
Thank you.
Yeah, fingers not getting tired there or anything like that. So, so in Sustainable Nation, we actually identified 6 accelerants. So kind of things that you can rely on to make things happen faster. And we're not going to go talk about them all today, but there's a couple that sort of stand out, campaigns being one of them. But let's go to the next one. So, and I think, I will probably, even stop, the talk before the talk so that we can talk. You know what I mean? So this is my favorite guy. I have a lot of, idols and heroes and people I quote and whose books sit top of my stack. But if you don't know the work of Daniel Kahneman, he won the Nobel Prize a few years back, about 2008, wrote a New York Times bestseller called Thinking Fast and Slow. And Kahneman's thing, this quote is just the only thing you need to write down is this quote. So he was asked by a couple of grad students on video, Professor Kahneman, how do you make people change? And he's the guy that, invented heuristics and the quirks of our minds, and probably, would never say it about himself, but can kind of understand the human brain and its maybe limitations and its oddities, as well as most anyone alive. But his response was, how to change people? That's the silliest question I've ever heard. The question you should be asking yourself, if you want people to do something differently, or if you want people to do differently is such a good idea, why aren't they doing it already? Ask yourself, it's such a good idea, why aren't they doing it already? If you frame change in this context of wrapping a kind of a dashboard around the individual or the group and asking if I think it's such a good idea for you to do something differently, that's the question to ask, and that's the framing, and that's how you organize the campaigns to get those right answers in front of as many people and groups as possible. Next one. So thank you, Dave. Oh my God. So going so great. So campaign. So this is one of my favorite ones. And, the smoking campaign, the anti-smoking campaign is a model. It's so well documented, all that kind of stuff. But from my point of view, a campaign needs a clear definition of success. Like, we want a carbon-free Chicago. When you want it, a deadline. We'd like it by 2050. Thank you. And then you also have to know where you're starting. So you have to have starting numbers, a finish line, and what success looks like. So, and to the groups around town that are working on this stuff, a lot of people are sort of aligning in a very nice way around a kind of similar deadline for decarbonizing around 2050. So that wasn't true a year ago or 2 years ago, and certainly not 5 years ago. So, clarity in the campaign and having a shared definition of success allows us to all work independently, but work towards the same common goal. Next one. And so here is, Carbon Free Chicago is a campaign for the equitable and timely decarbonization of Chicago. Both of those words, I think, are key. It took, about 6 months to kind of get that phrase just so. Time, and this, we had this before last summer's, events, the kind of just learning that we all did collectively about injustice and so on. So equity has to be front and center, and it's got to be timely because this is urgent. It's really about keeping your eye on the clock. Next image. Thank you, Dave. And we got to leave the stuff on the ground. Let's just leave the game is don't extract the coal, don't extract the gas, don't extract the petroleum, leave it underground. Next one. So we'll get. Yeah. So, and again, clarifying success. What does success look like? It's a carbon-free, not a low-carbon Chicago. And this is not agreed to. There is not a consensus that this is amongst even folks in the kind of energy efficiency and environment space that it needs to be full decarb. And so I think what people want to do is say, well, can't we reduce it? Isn't that good? Well, of course it's good. But the shortcoming is if your goal is to build a 20-story building, building a 2-story building doesn't help you. You may have to just abandon the 2-story building to then build the 20-story building. So that's why I say there's a lot of sort of intermediate steps where people say, well, I'll do lower. And now I install in my building, or I purchase a car or vehicle that has a useful life of 10, 20 years, and I'm using less carbon for the next 20 years. No, you might have been better off to wait 6 months and and get it right. So those are the kinds of things. So clarity on success. Next one. And then this is one of my absolute favorites. So I do think this is another part of, it's true for all humans. I think it's especially true for Americans, and probably in Europe where they've had kings. But we look to our leaders to lead things that they have no agency over. So, we look to the federal government, our president, to be the kind of climate campaigner in chief. Well, is that working for you? Is that working really well for you? Because it hadn't been working that well for me. I was a young person and voted my first presidential campaign for Jimmy Carter on his promise to enact a gas tax on gas at the pump to put in your car. That was 45 years ago, and we still don't have a gas tax. So our expectation is mommy, daddy will take care of it, that kind of the king or the president or whatever. And just on this Independence weekend, NPR read aloud the Declaration of Independence this morning. And it's sort of hard not to see our government as the anti-king, but we still have a lot of hierarchy and a top dog and all that kind of stuff. So the Paris Climate Accords is basically all the kings and presidents and heads of state getting together and doing a top-down thing. So, and do we ever believe that President Biden or a future president will reach into our house and rip out our hot water heater and compel us to buy an electric car and stop eating hamburgers or something like that? No, those are personal freedoms. Those are personal choices. And so we're looking in the wrong place for that change to spark there. And I think the other thing is that government follows trends that come from the people. And so we can spark trends. We can rub two sticks together to get people to want to do these things. And if we do it with enough enthusiasm and at scale, then my theory is you start at the bottom, it bubbles up, culture bubbles up, and then the leaders must respond. But to have them start when no one on the bottom of the podium cares, that doesn't work. So click one more.
Doug,
yeah, Mark.
Should we mail the president a paintbrush and a bucket of red paint to start painting gas pipes?
I love what you're thinking there, brother. Thank you so much. Yeah, that would be so fun. But I think this is one more click, Dave, if you would, and just this idea of when we delegate action to the top person, we almost pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords. We can't do anything because the president took us out of Paris. You know what? That is such misguided thinking, right? We have agency to do lots of things, and there's no one but ourselves saying you shouldn't just start today. So we'll do a few more of these, and then I friends are out there, and we want to hear from them. So if you can do a couple more, let's flip through a bunch of these. Learning from Boston. Boston's ahead of us. ComEd's a dirty utility, but it's interesting. We've done a lot of sessions this year. Illinois is the most nuclear powered state in the country. And so that's a whole debate going forward. Is, Germany kind of got it right probably by banning nukes, but then you look at France, which was pretty much all nuclear, and they're sitting pretty good for climate. So anyway, are nukes part of it? I think they probably are. And I have some fights with friends and colleagues in the office about that. So let's go. Let's just flip through these and people can read them. But I want to just keep going. And at some point this is an important one. So this one. So here's a couple things. So, I am afflicted with the inability to not think in the long term, and it's a problem. So, I'm thinking in 2050, 2075, 2100, and, the part of my job that is planner is, that's a good thing. But like thinking ahead, like if everything gets electrified, like every building is heated without natural gas, every car is powered without petroleum, the pipelines are ripped up because we don't use them anymore. What's that look like? Has anybody sort of thought that through? And again, I want to share my enthusiasm for the sort of complexity of what's in front of us, the challenges that we face, but the kind of, if you're at all curious, it's just fascinating. It's just fascinating. And no one has figured it out. I mean, that's the other thing. Like if you like to be kind of on the ground floor of things, this is an endless ground floor, trust me. But Boston taught us this one thing: if we electrify everything, the electric grid for Boston would have to triple in size to meet its peak load. And so nobody's thinking about that. There's all kinds of governments saying we will electrify our electric grid without noticing that may need to triple in size. It's like, well, were you going to electrify the 1/3 of it or the 3/3 of it? So like those, again, sort of thinking long term, playing things out to their end, starting with the end in mind. So maybe the next two, and then we'll pause because it's a holiday weekend. So as an architect, and this is kind of how I think about carbon-free Chicago, and we're certainly not there yet. Not that carbon-free Chicago would somehow tell people what to do, but that we coordinate and that we are part of a network, and folks, have agency and autonomy to do their stuff, but they're doing it mindful of what is being done around them. And we all probably aspire to that, but we get busy, we put our head down, and we don't necessarily, remind us to check in with the folks around us. So this is a classic chart that's used to build any project. Dave, every week you have your building science, and Mark, they all use this. You build a building, you get the site, you clear the site, you pour the footings, foundations, first floor walls, second floor walls, roof, shingles, siding, windows, and then the last thing is the key to the door. And you better do it in order, because you can't, if you build the roof first, I'm not sure what it sits on. So the next slide shows how we are going about decarbonization. Next one, I'm sorry, that's healthy, as you do it in sequence. Whoops, and I don't know where the other slide is there, but we're not doing it in the right sequence. So whatever, it's out there somewhere. The 2 Earth slide was actually a good one. So this is another thing that, these are kind of, as I say, kind of concepts or constructs or whatever that I have just tripped over and kind of haunt me, honestly, in terms of thinking about what people should be doing. So in the climate space, again, everything people are doing is beneficial. Like it's generally a good thing. Like nobody's doing evil. Nobody's doing something that's, kind of hostile to the idea, but a lot of things are simply beneficial and not strategic. And my test for that is, if you never did it, would it matter? Would it matter? So like there was a group in town a couple years ago got a grant and handed out light bulbs. Now that was good. Again, beneficial. Like, wow, number of people got light bulbs and put them in and used less energy. But like in the greater cosmic thing, was there a ripple to the light bulb project? I submit no. Had they kind of what are the points of leverage? How can we get in there and change a policy thing? Those higher things are kind of where we want to be. So anyway, I could go on all day, but it's the 4th of July, it's Independence Day, and boy, Dave, you look really different with that mask on. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, everybody, let's take a few moments, Doug, and we'll go to some comments. But I had a question because you mentioned hamburgers, right? You mentioned hamburgers. Yeah. And one of the hot topics right now is, the cows. Why is everybody talking about getting rid of cows and beef? Is this the best way to address carbon neutrality, or are there better solutions? And then what happens to all the farmers if you start cutting back their livelihoods on the beef cattle?
Why, Dave, you've just expressed a lost heuristic. I have something now that I don't want to lose, therefore don't move my cheese, right? So, I think everyone knows the stats on bovine flatulence, to use the technical term, bovine flatulence. But, methane is, 54x compared, more powerful climate gas than CO2. So it's a real thing. I mean, there's, I think I x-rayed the landscape of the sort of steps that we might be asked to take to align our lives with a kind of positive future for our children and grandchildren on the planet. And there's some that people shrug. It's like, you don't really care, like whether the water that was heated to, make your shower comfortable this morning was burning gas or using heat pump. Nobody gets emotional about that. Like, I had a nice shower, thank you. But people start getting emotional about cooking gas, and they get emotional about my diet. Don't tell me I can't have fill in the blank. Fine. I think, we are creatures of habit. Back to that campfire from 10 or 50,000 years ago. Culture is, there's a Jane Goodall quote that I also am transfixed by. Culture is observed behavior passed from one generation to the next. So, did you, I suspect if you love hamburgers, your parents did too. So they passed that on to you. And so that's part of back to this thing, that's part of your identity. So your opinions flow from your identity. And so I say, it's just a fact, beef is kind of, it's a nut we got to crack. But your identity is stronger than your desire to crack that nut. So, it's just, I think it's Jane Goodall's definition sort of said it: learned behavior, observed behavior passed from one generation to the next. So you have to just start doing the new behavior and have other people see it and copy and say, that's not crazy. So, so that could go on quite a long time. Do you have another question there, Dave?
Why don't we get in? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
I had one comment about the Boston study that I love when this is used by you and other folks. The point of the study of Boston and the fact that they need 3 times the electrification to move from the gas-free supply for the cities is not so that other cities conduct the same study. The studies completed use that and take action in your area. We don't need 80 cities creating these studies. Yep. You can learn from the actions of others and move one step forward, right? It's like the first time you shut the water off when you were brushing your teeth. You then realized your teeth do not require the faucet on to brush. Yeah. So we can take steps by others and advance. I love these comments, by the way. Jennifer or Dave, who's ever putting them on. Hello, Dr. Rebecca. Hello, Jeff. Oh, wow. And yes, happy 4th with a PH, brother.
Yeah, there's a lot of comments. So I'm just going to roll through comments, and when I get to questions, we'll stop and take them. But we just want to make sure we say hi to everybody and thank them for joining us for sure.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining in on the 4th of July. So to Mark's point, I will say a lot of one of the things that I think is another kind of weird thing that happens is you say, oh, there's a new book on climate change. can't wait. And it's 11 chapters on how bad the problem is. And chapter 12, begins to say, well, maybe we could do a few things. And if you all saw Al Gore's film in the day, which was, The Inconvenient Truth, it was 98% the problem and 2% solutions. In fact, the solutions started on the credit scroll. Change your light bulbs, walk more, whatever. So when we wrote Sustainable Nation, we did 10% the problem and 90% answers. So, I think to Mark's point, if you're 10 or 20% off on your model that Chicago is that different from Boston, so what? You still know what you need to do. You don't have to wait for the study. It's another way of delaying. Oh no, we need better data to know what to do. No, you know exactly what to do. You do not have to wait. This is a revolutionary weekend. We need this kind of revolution, and we should, as we're having a great weekend with our family and friends, and getting out there and playing soccer and flipping whatever we're gonna flip, let's be thinking about revolutionary times and just kind of throwing off our habits and going forward. Thumbs up from Mark and thumbs up from Dave.
Yeah, love it. And we got a couple Twitch people in the house, which is always awesome. Greg Ugaldi and DVA Mechanics joining from Twitch. Doug, you know why we go to Twitch, right?
I'm not sure, Dave. Don't know what.
All the young people are in Twitch, and the cool kids are on Twitch too.
Well, I'm not a cool kid, Dave. I wouldn't know anything about that. But
you got Greg Ugaldi on Twitch.
Yeah.
So we go to Twitch.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing with this Twitch. It's been growing ever since Dave and Greg brought it forward. So, Doug, all the kids who play video games and create things digitally and virtually, they're all on Twitch. And so the effort of the construction world and NAHB is to get the building science and construction out to Twitch so that these kids have a path to do BIM and to do the digital twins of their projects, and to know that the world of construction is here for them and they can take their skills and apply it in their career forward. That's why we do the Twitch. I love it.
It is the virtual it is the virtual world for gaming, and they've been doing digital twins and BIMs long before any of us were doing it. So it's a huge platform. So appreciate that, Mark. All right, Dr. Rebecca Reynolds. This is her third time too, Doug. So she says, Doug, because of your attention to community and speeding up the pace of change, I would love your input on providing things like the Tesla roof for schools with using the high schoolers to learn through the experience.
Wow, I want to meet Dr. Rebecca J. Reynolds, third timer. Thank you so much, Doctor. We're designing, my office, Farr Associates, is designing a K-8 school that will be a net zero school here in Chicago. And so we are working through the kind of how to tell the net zero story as an educational story. And so the solar panels are, Tesla roof is a way of generating electricity. And I think that's pretty key. It's pretty oftentimes, though, the solar panels go on the roof and they're very hard to see. And you don't really know how they're doing, and students don't really have that much agency to do much with them. So we're actually working right now to figure out how we can present our living building school to the kids as almost like an animal that they would take care of, be responsible for. Or wake up in the morning, make sure that it's nurtured, make sure it's doing okay, feed it, take care of it, all those kinds of things, and put it to bed at night so that it is a thing that they interact with. It's not passive. It's not a plaque on the wall or those kinds of things. So that's one thing. And I'll just say another kind of funny heuristic in this space to everybody is we have dear friends across the way here who put solar panels on their house. And, it's like, wow, that's so cool. Thank you for doing that. And it's a really conspicuous site, and everybody sees them. Like, everyone knows this family has solar panels. And I asked them one day, well, how do you heat your house? Oh, geez, we have a 50-year-old oil boiler, and it really, it's terrible. It's like, well, okay, well, you got that so right. Can we help you get the other thing to be similarly right? And so it is easier, I think, for people to add something than it is to say, whoa, I got to go back in here and dig this whole thing out and think about it really differently. that house also, the house with solar panels has no insulation and a 50-year-old boiler. So like virtue, love them, thank them for doing that. But like, how do we rejigger how people think about it as the kind of this journey? We have to do kind of all those things. So anyway, Doctor, I hope that was some answer.
Dr. Rebecca is from the Chicago area, so as you have tours and presentations, Rebecca, I'll put a link out later for you and Doug to connect. Yeah. I'm really interested in that K through 8 school. So Dave and I talked to a lot of people, Doug, and a friend in the industry, his name is Andrew Seeley. He lives in an area of Texas where there's no electric, so it's an off-grid property because there is no electric. As he's getting ready to build the project, he knew he was going to put solar on the roof and had all the panels and whatnot. And what he did instead is he installed all the panels on site permanently before the project began. And now the construction of the project is actually being done by battery powered tools that are charged by solar panels, right? Wow. Like, wow. Why wait? Why wait for the project to be done and have that generator, right, in your ear and in your lungs? Forget about it, right? Just get there faster.
Totally cool. Yeah. Totally cool. Yeah. So, another kind of concept that, is worth putting out there is this idea of skipping a step. So we got hired by the country of Russia, if you can believe this, to write a report one year when their country was chairing the Sustainability Committee for the Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation Group. And we were trying to give advice to Pacific Rim nations on how to, position themselves to be, really leaders in sustainability in the future. And the thing was basically, don't do what we did. The United States built, a robust system of pipelines, tankers, excavation, extraction, the whole thing. Skip it all and just go to a solar economy. Don't sink your money into an infrastructure of a technology that you intend to abandon right away. Those of us who live in Chicago, and neither Mark nor Dave do these days, Mark used to and will again, our local natural gas utility, People's Gas, got an $11 billion credit card to go around and make sure that the pipes that connect all the buildings have another 50 or 100 years useful life in them. Good idea. Wow. Who thought of that? Wow. Is that a sunk cost? Oh my God, would I love to have that $11 billion to spend on solar panels and conservation and insulation. So anyway, it's just crazy. So thank God we love human beings, even when they're being crazy. And you just got to kind of have the vision and kind of focus on success and, keep talking about it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I love your audience. These comments are amazing. Wow.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun. And Doug, I don't know if you ever met Greg. Greg was the immediate past chairman of National Association of Home Builders. So definitely he's interested in science. He's interested in better ways to build and different ways to build, and joins us every week. And he's also on the show once a month to talk about what the NAHB is looking at and doing. And we have the ear of the NAHB finally with building science and offsite construction. And it's always an honor when Greg joins us, because they are the lobbyists and the people out there fighting for our rights and regulations, and they can help us drive change if we all work together.
I think we need to get Greg a 2030 committed button for when he walks into the White House. He has these beautiful suits, and I think the suits would look so much sharper with the 2034 magnetic button.
Right. Yeah, Greg. And so, we have, a lot of the buttons that Mark's referring to go to architects in Chicago, some of which are very fancy and also have, the fancy suits. And so we invented the magnetic button, so you didn't actually have to pierce the fabric. So if you have a nice suit, get your button. So
I think some 2030 cufflinks.
Yeah.
Put them together. It says 2030.
All of that, cozies, hoodies, one of everything. Awesome. But yeah, glad to meet you. So yeah. So
maybe we need a 2030 umbrella, Doug. You had an umbrella campaign before, remember?
We did. Yeah. There's a lot of campaigns. I think, thanks for mentioning that, Mark. I just do feel like, when we are serving as planners, there's a lot of policy things that we bump up against, and policy is a funny thing because someone sits down and says, here's what the policy should be. And they're often not the person that has any power. So they sort of sit there as a kind of, geez, I'm so mad no one's adopting my policies. Well, guess what? Just get busy out there. So a campaign, we can all be part of campaigns. We can all start our campaigns. And so that's what I realize is empowering on this revolutionary 4th of July in the year 2021 is we have the freedom to talk to each other. We have the freedom to organize. We have the freedom to go first. We have the freedom to tap our friends who know more than we do to do all this stuff. And, the whole idea of I need to wait for someone to show me, I need to wait for someone to validate me. There has to be a policy in place before I can do my thing. They're all delaying tactics that came really out of the time when I think we can't, in the years 10,000 years ago and 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, it was really smart not to innovate. Like if your elders said, the lion will not eat you if you sit over here, sit over here. That's your grandfather. He's, 50 years old and he dodged 10 lions. Do what the heck he says. But we're in a moment where the elders' wisdom is the wrong wisdom. So, and I don't know if you get young folks on this call, Dave and Mark, but that they're the next gen. But I would say anybody that's young, and we're all young in here, don't wait, don't take no for an answer. It's all on you. And please connect with Carbon Free Chicago. And I don't know how to put things in the chat there, but if you can,
we'll put it up.
Thank you. You can put CFC 2050
in the ticker below.
Yeah. Okay. Great. There you go. Yeah. So send us a note.
So Doug, we have some more slides here. You wanted to continue with the slides, or you want to continue having just some conversation?
Let me give me 1 second there, Dave, and I'll tell you where I want to drop the needle. Yeah, drop the needle. So yeah.
There's sometimes we just need to turn the record over.
This is what I love about having Doug on, Mark. It's just the show. He just takes the show and goes with it, and it's and it's entertaining. So, Doug, maybe we need to have you on as well once a month, just to educate us. And hey, Doug, I want you to think of this at the end of the show. I want to ask you, what is your one thing? You don't have to tell us now, but what is your one thing, personally or professionally, that you can leave with us today? And also, what is the one thing that you believe that as a collective group collaborating from the National Association of Home Builders all the way down to the custom builder or somebody looking into this, what's the one thing we can all do to move the needle forward that isn't overwhelming or isn't something? Yeah. So at the end of the show, let's get into that. You know where you want to go?
I do. Yeah. Go to slide 69 if you would. And so this is what I want. Should look like Carbon Free Chicago across the top, little banner. So, the climate emergency, the climate movement, the decarbonization movement, all of it is, let's see, maybe we have different slide 69s. Let's see, it's so interesting. Well, let's see, do you have one that has ministries on it there somewhere? Well, we're close. Ministries, the word ministries. I think it's further back than that, towards the bottom.
Okay.
I'm
on slide 60 at the moment.
Maybe that. Keep going. So
we've already done these slides.
Yeah. No, it's further towards the back. Sorry. All I want to talk about here is this, that the work of decarbonization and all of it is it's sort of heavy. It's dark. It's a kind of a burden we bear. I mean, and Rebecca Reynolds posts in the chat, people act out of fear, and I think you're getting closer. Keep going, getting there. There it is. That's it. Thank you. So my math, as I've said, humans are terrible at math. And so I told you 69 and it was really like 100 or something like that. So I must have started with a low number. But here's the thing. I think, and this seems maybe crazy counterintuitive, but to wage a campaign about decarbonization, you have to lead, even though there's plenty of things to be afraid of and plenty of things to cling to, and don't make me change it, don't make me change course. There she is, the layout of fear. We have structured Carbon Free Chicago to be a fun-loving, party-throwing, just kind of a great old thing. And so the Ministry of Magic, and I may have some images on this, following this one, Dave. But anyway, we have organized this idea of the Ministry of Magic and made Earth Day our high holiday. And so this past Earth Day, we had before sunrise, we had 70 people get together around a campfire, non-ironic, a campfire, to do what humans have done for the last 10 and 20 and 30 and 50,000 years, which is to gather and to build spirit and to, charge our batteries for the long haul ahead. So we're hoping to have this fall, and anybody in Metro Chicago is invited, what we're calling the after party, or half Earth Day, or the other one is the masked ball. So, or the revolution ball. So we're figuring out, if you want to be on the host committee for the party this fall, it'll be a costume party, it'll be a dance, and it'll go as long as the legal authorities will allow. So there we go. Yeah, Dave, you got your costume.
I'm in, man. I'm already showed up.
Right. But and I'll just, maybe this is my last thing. If you click 2 more times, truth, power, and magic, Ministry of Magic, keep going. Go right to the end, I think, is some stuff on Burning Man. So my wife and I had the good fortune to go to Burning Man, which is a festival in the desert. Uh-huh. And it really is a reset of all your habits. You go there and it's like, whatever your commute was, whatever there you go. Whatever your commute is, whatever your habits are, I get my coffee and my newspaper, and I put my roll on the paper, all this, and thrown out the window. No habits translate for that week. And you come back and sort of like, okay, clean slate, blank screen, whatever you want to say, like I can have the life I want. And it really is a great sort of zeroing out experience. And so it's hard to do that in a city, but that's part of the intention of these parties. So we aim to have the best parties in town. And if you like parties, please get in touch and join the host committee. But in terms of the one thing, Dave, I love your question. What's the one thing? I think it is to agree on the common, so put us in touch with the good doctor there. So, but the one thing that I think is most powerful is agree on what success looks like. And, we'll differ in tactics, we'll differ in strategies, we'll differ in degrees of aggressiveness. But to agree that what we need to visualize is a world, a society, a region, a city, my block, my house, my family, that doesn't burn fossil fuels. And there's lots of other things that go with that, the diet and other habits and travel and things like that. But, fundamentally, that's it. And so, what it means is we have to invest more in the system we have. We have an electric grid and, parts of it, but not enough. And then we have to disinvest and abandon the current system that kind of powers our lives. And so, pipelines cease to be needed. And the joyous part of that is when you look in a Chicago or an Illinois or Midwest sense, the places that take the hardest hit from fossil fuels are Gary, Indiana, and East St. Louis, Illinois, because that's where all the refineries are. And so, in terms of environmental justice, if you're concerned about the health of people of color, people of low incomes, the best thing you can do is rip out those pipelines, because that means the refineries are going down and the air quality goes up and everyone benefits. So I have those kind of crazy long-term ideas in mind of like, what year will the pipeline get ripped up, and how many people have to switch to electric cars to, justify closing that pipeline, kind of thing. So anyway, I live in the future. It's nice visiting you Earthlings back in the year 2021. Really nice being here with you, but a little bit of futurism isn't a bad thing, and a lot of hopium is also good. So we're good.
I want to bring up a suggestion based on the one thing that Dave asked that you've answered in the past, Doug. And I think it was while we were at Skender or someplace for a big meeting. And one of the requests that you made to the audience is, when you plan a project and when you give that plan set to the people bidding and the people accepting the contracts, go ahead and include solar panels on the project. So regardless of them not being asked for by the client or the municipality, etc., just add it to the plan set. And that way, everyone bidding on the project turns around and connects their solar suppliers and asks for bids on the panels. So if it's not used, it's a choice not to use it. But at least the infrastructure of the community is humming about the need for more renewables, or whatever your shiny object is, right?
Yep, absolutely. Great. No, totally agree. Just, I think if there's one maximum, you asked for one, I'll give you a second one, but, kind of act as though the world you want and the rules you want were in place today. Don't wait for them. So we strive to design all of our buildings to meet Passive House standards, whether the client asks for it or not. It's certainly not in the code, but my ideal building code of the future is one where it requires Passive House level, efficiencies. And so, what's the best way to do that? Act like it's true today, and just, and navigate, maybe have a kind of, a Steve Jobs alternate reality of, I want to live in this world. It does all these things differently from how we do it, and educate yourself, train yourself. If you're ready to do it, there's you eliminate as many barriers to your conduct being the cause for why it didn't happen. And so, as I say, it's nice visiting you Earthlings in 2021, but all good, all good.
Yeah, me, brother.
Yeah, I saw that. I said, hey, I mean, it's every once in a while us Earthlings need to go to Mars, and I've been saying all along, if I can get a hold of Elon Musk, his Teslas should be charging our houses, not our houses charging his Teslas. Why not? They're out there turning wheels just like a windmill, so why can't they come home and give us energy? Anywho, that's my thoughts on that. Listen, everybody, thank you so much. Hit that like and share button. Mark, we got a lineup for this week for next week coming up. Starting tomorrow, Coffee with Dave. Man, Mark, I planned this horribly wrong. When I was on the East Coast and I did, I'm going to do Saturday morning coffees with Dave,
I know.
9 a.m. Eastern. I got to get up at 5 a.m. to get my 6 a.m. show going because I'm on the West Coast now. So I got to rework the way I think.
So I want to add to that, Dave. Doug, Dave is in Washington State, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know where you're at in Washington State, but there's a giant living building challenge, right? The Bullitt Center, right?
Right.
That's there. And Dave, that's a great place for you to have coffee. That's a great place for you to bring your daughters and your son. Yeah. Because exemplary examples allow people to learn. And so while you're in Washington, if you can check that out, I think your audience and your family will appreciate that epic example. And I hope other cities can visit that virtually. Go ahead, Doug.
I was just going to say there's something in the chat from someone, Ergo Desk. Burning Man is not a satanic festival, but I appreciate your insights there. But in terms of the naming, Carbon Free Chicago, of course we are, as Spock would tell us, we are carbon-based life forms. So we're not trying to get rid of life. It is a shorthand for fossil fuel-free Chicago, which is too many words to put in a logo or a title. So my apologies for any confusion there, but that's we love life, and carbon-based life in particular But we got to stop it with the fossil fuels, people. So hopefully that helps.
Sure. One of my favorite comments or processes of Burning Man is when you're signing up for a chance to get the tickets, there's a series of questions that you answer. If you don't get those questions right, you don't get a chance to get tickets. And the question, it literally knocks you out of the system, and it's brilliant. Like, you see a piece of trash on the ground, what do?
Yeah.
Well, if you don't have an answer to that, you're probably not the right community, right? So it's just a brilliant mindset. I wish more would be like that, right? You want to go on a roller coaster, clean up the trash around you. It's that simple.
That's right.
It's your trash.
It's your trash. Pick it up. Well, listen, Mark, what do we have coming up for next Friday on BS Friday?
Oh, next Friday is Everybody's All American. He's a friend of yours. He's a friend of mine. He's a friend of ours, as they say. His name is Joe Konopacki, and
never heard of him.
There's no one more next door than Joe. He dives into properties and he gives you a prescription of what you're experiencing. So Joe Konopacki, Insight Property, Everybody's All American. That's right. And Joe will talk on many things. So we're pleased to have Joe on July 9th.
That is awesome. And Monday, we have Ashley Bolkart coming on from Materials Exchange. You want to know the truth about what's going on with the lumber markets? This is what they do. They trade in the lumber markets day in and day out, and you can buy your lumber directly through their platform. That's right, not Home Depot, not the lumber yards, but you can bid it out to all the local suppliers and have lumber delivered right to you. And we all know what's been going on with lumber. Hopefully the prices keep coming down, but that's where we are on that. And then on Wednesday, guess what, Mark? We got Sprayer on. Lisa Render and their new company. This is an automated spray foam technology for manufacturing. No longer do you have to pull your modules and your units off the side of the line. They have come up with a solution that it flows right in the line, and you can use spray foam to insulate your home, and it just keeps getting better and better from there. Pretty good show lineup for next week, huh?
I think with Doug, next time you go to Michigan, Doug, let us know. Maybe Dave and Jennifer will be there at the same time. You have to go see Lisa's project. I believe she's outside of Grand Rapids. I believe that's right. And then these gentlemen and ladies from Materials Exchange, Doug, Dave and I both met them separately, at the same time. They're from Chicago, and they've really transformed the way you purchase and move wood fiber. So both discussions on Monday and Wednesday, I'm particularly interested because I happen to know the people, but the topics are really close to the heart. So looking forward to those, Dave.
Yeah, I am as well. All right, Doug, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. We know you are a global man of interest in education, so it's always wonderful when you come on and join us. Mark, always a wonderful job. 3 acts, first time. Doug, you're going to go down in the history books as the first person ever to do that on BS Friday, let alone Dave Cooper live show all the way through. So I hope everybody out there, and I got to put it up one more time, has an awesome 4th of July. I hope you spend time with your families and friends. I hope you enjoy yourselves. I hope everybody stays safe. And if you're going to drink and drive, don't. Just drink and stay home if that's the plan. But other than that, it's the 4th of July. This is the best country in the world to live in. So enjoy every bit of it. And we're going to do it on our end, right? Anything you want to leave us with, Mark, before we go?
No, enjoy your independence and be good to one another.
That's right. Doug, thank you so much. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back to you after the outro here. And to everybody else out there, until tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Pacific time. Oh, my gosh. I will see you in the morning with 2 cups of coffee with Dave. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye now.